Welcome to iOS Basics Part 1. Today we're going to be looking at 3 of the most essential apps on your phone, including the Phone app, Messages app, and Mail app. This presentation will be a good beginning point for anyone who is new to the Apple ecosystem. First we will look at the Phone app, which is the app that makes your iPhone a phone. For most users, unless you have reorganized your apps quite a bit, this app should be able to be found at the bottom of your screen in what we call your dock. The most basic functionality of this app is to allow you to take and place phone calls. Let's take a look at how it's organized. The Phone app is divided into 5 distinct sections, which you can see along the bottom of your screen. The first one is Favorites, which is represented by a star icon. Second one is Recents, which looks like a clock. The third one is Contacts, which resembles 2 people standing next to each other. The fourth one is Keypad, which should be the most familiar to you, as it looks like 9 dots, which represent the keys that you press. And 5 is Voicemails, whose icon looks like a tape recorder. Let's take a look at what each of these do. Before we go more in depth with the Phone app, I do want to go over one of the most basic functionalities of the app that could be very helpful to you. You might have found yourself at some point accidentally calling someone that you didn't mean to call. This will lead us into the ending a call function, and it's very basic. Click the red button. If you can click this red button within the first 3 seconds of placing a call, then the other person will not get a notification that you called them. So a good thing to practice is pressing this end call button as quickly as you can. This same function goes for if you take a call that someone else called you and you want to end that call, just press the red button. The Favorites section of the Phone app will allow you to quickly access any contact that you designate as one of your favorites. These contacts can be designated that way by going into the Contacts app and selecting Add to Favorites. Any contact designated this way will stay in the Favorites tab until you manually remove it. I would typically suggest that you add your family members, close friends, children, grandchildren, anyone who you call on a regular basis into this Favorites screen. Clicking on any of the names that you see in the favorite screen will immediately call them. You can remove any favorite at any time by pressing the edit button in the top right corner and then selecting the red minus button that will pop up next to each of the contacts. The next section along the bottom of the screen is the Recents feature. This essentially acts as a call log, showing the history of calls that you have made or that you have taken from other people. This will show in reverse chronological order all of the calls that have been received or made from the phone. However, it does get a little bit more in depth than this. The coloring and icons next to each of the calls do mean different things. Any call that appears in red was a call that you missed. These will only be calls that were made to you that you failed to pick up the first time. Any call that is in black is one that you either picked up or made yourself. You can see in my call log that the majority of the calls I did not pick up. You can also look for one other icon, which looks like a phone with an arrow pointing out of it. That is next to any call that you created yourself. You can see that on my call log I have one outbound call to Ryan. All the other calls were made to me and I either didn't pick them up or in the case of Bryce and Jenna, I did pick them up. There are a few other features that we should look at in the Recents tab. Up at the very top, you can see that you're able to toggle between All and Missed. All will show you every single call that has either been made by you or taken by you. But if you switch it to Missed, it will only show the calls that are showing up in red on the screen currently. This can be helpful if you make a lot of calls a day but you just want to see the ones that you could have potentially missed in that time period. The next thing we'll look at is the edit button in the top right corner. This allows you to delete certain calls off of your call log. There's no real good reason to delete calls out of your call log except for peace of mind. If you really like to keep an organized call log, feel free to edit whenever you want, but keep in mind that these calls and these entries are not taking up any reasonable amount of storage on your phone, and so if you are looking to free up space on your phone, deleting your call log is not the place to start. The last button that you'll see next to every call in the call log is a little I which is blue and has a circle around it. If you click on that I next to any of the calls, it will show you information about that caller, including how many times they've called in the past, whether or not you have a contact for them, and whether or not you can initiate an iMessage or FaceTime call to them as well. This is also where you can create a new contact from that caller if you choose to do so. The next section is in the middle of the bottom of the screen and is called Contacts. This feature is relatively simple, giving you quick access to your contact book. You can also access the same information by going to the Contacts app, which we'll discuss in a later presentation of iOS Basics. From here, you can go through and search your contacts and initiate a call from there instead of typing in their number on the keypad screen. This can be very helpful and time-saving if you use it correctly. You can also add contacts from this screen by pressing the plus button in the top right corner. That's another thing that we'll go over more in another presentation when we look at the Contacts app. We will briefly go back to a previous slide to take a look at the Keypad app. This is arguably the most simple component of the phone app, allowing you to type in any number and call them. This is useful for if you need to call someone that you don't have as a contact. All you need to do is type the number in and press the green button to call them. If you mess up typing in the number, there will be a backspace button accessible in the top right corner of the screen. The final portion of the phone app can be found in the very bottom right corner, and this is the voicemail feature. When you click here, you will see all of the people who have left you a voicemail in reverse chronological order. Any voicemail that has a blue dot next to it represents a voicemail that you have not yet listened to. All the other ones have been at least viewed one time. Clicking on any of the voicemails will immediately start playing it and will also display an audio transcription of what they said in their message. This can be very helpful when you're in a circumstance where you can't listen to the audio of a message and you would rather read the text adaptation of it. There are several other buttons that we should take a look at around the voicemail feature. The first is in the very top left corner and it's called Greeting. Clicking on this will allow you to adapt your greeting message that people hear when a call is not picked up by you. Every phone has a default greeting, which sounds like a robot that just says your number, but clicking on the greeting button up in the top corner will allow you to change it to a more personalized version. Up in the top right corner, we will see the Edit button. This is where you can go through and delete any of the voicemails that you no longer want to have in your log. This is something that I would recommend you do every now and then, as your voicemail inbox only has so much space, and if you never delete your voicemails, it'll eventually become full and people will not be able to leave you any voice messages. This is something that I would recommend you do about once a month. You will also see the blue eye with a circle around it next to each of the voicemails that people have left you. This will do the same thing as clicking on the eye on the Recents tab that we looked at a minute ago, showing you information about that caller, how many times they've called, and also giving you the ability to add them as a contact if you would like to. You may also notice the red number 1 that appears next to the icon of voicemail in the very bottom right corner. This red number will always refer to the amount of unlistened to voicemails that you have. In this case, there's a number 1, which corresponds to the one voicemail that has a blue dot next to it. In your case, there may be many more, and you can clear this number by listening to those voicemails. The next app we will view today is called Messages. This is where you can send and receive text messages or iMessages, which we will talk about the difference between in a minute. When you open up the app, you should be greeted by the screen that you see on the presentation slide right now, which I refer to as the inbox. This will allow you to see all of the messages that anyone has sent to you, again in reverse chronological order. There are a couple features to pay attention to here. One is the blue dot that you see next to a couple of the conversations we see here. That blue dot means that it is an unread message. Any conversation without a blue dot means that you have clicked on it and viewed it at least one time. You can also see two other features on the screen. In the very top right corner is the Edit button. This is where you can delete conversations if you would like to. If you were to click on any of the names that we saw on the previous slide, it would take you to a screen that looks like this. This is called a conversation, and it is the complete history of any text messages that have been sent between you and another person or people. I say people because you can actually have something called a group chat, which is a text message conversation that is shared between 2 and 32 people. On this screen, you're able to look at every text message that has ever been sent between you and the person that you clicked on. The ones that you have sent will appear on blue and will be centered towards the right of the screen. The ones that they have sent will be gray and centered towards the left of the screen. Sometimes the text messages that you send will appear as green. That means that the person you are texting does not have an iPhone. This could be a text message you sent to someone with a Samsung device, but it will also appear if you're texting a number that will not be able to receive text messages. Whenever you see a green bubble, confirm that you are sending it to the right number, the number that you actually intended. From this screen, you're able to send new messages to that person by clicking where it says iMessage in the very bottom, as well as scrolling through and seeing every message that's been sent in the past. You can exit this screen by clicking on the back arrow in the top left corner. You can also click on the I with a circle around it in the top right corner to view more information about the person you're conversing with. This information includes their actual phone number, their email address, and will give you the ability to call them or FaceTime them if you choose to. The other essential feature of the Messages app is sending messages. There are two ways to initiate this feature. One is by pressing on the Compose button on the screen that we looked at first. That was the one that looked like a pen and paper. You would do that in the circumstance that you have not texted that person that you want to be texting before. If you have texted that person before, you'll want to scroll through your conversation screen until you see the conversation that you've been having with them in the past. Clicking on that will bring up a screen similar to the one that we saw on the last slide. Once you're on that screen, you can press on the little bubble that said iMessage that I pointed out on the last slide, which will bring up the keyboard as you see right now on this slide. From here you can type in the message that you want to send them and then press on the blue button. Pressing on the blue button will send your message, so be careful with this button. You can also hold down on this button to see other cool effects that you can add to the message. You can make it so that when the person opens the message, balloons will float across their screen, or fireworks will pop up, as well as a spotlight highlighting the words that you just sent. That's a fun thing to use, but I would not recommend you use it all the time, as it can slow down both your phone and the recipient's phone. From this Compose screen, you can also add a picture by pressing on the camera button there, or add one of the many different iMessage apps that are available, which allow you to do things ranging from adding a sticker to the conversation or playing 8-ball pool with the person that you are talking with. You can also press on the microphone button in the very bottom right corner to use the dictation feature, which allows you to talk what you want to say, and Siri will transcribe it into text for you. This can be very helpful when you're driving. In the very bottom left corner, you can also see a world icon, which will allow you to change the language of the keyboard that you're typing in. This can be very useful if you're bilingual and are typing in English some of the time, and on the other half of the time you're typing in some other language. You can exit this screen by pressing the back button in the very top left corner, which will take you to the conversation screen. The final app that we'll look at today is the Mail app. This is the app that allows you to view and send emails on your phone. The first time you ever open up this app, it will give you the ability to put in your account information to set up your email address. After you do that, every time you open the app, it will take you to the screen that you see on the slide right now, which is called Inbox. Your inbox is very similar to how you access your email on your computer. It will show you again in reverse chronological order all of the emails that have been sent to you. Any email that has a blue dot next to it means that you have not yet read it. Any email without the blue dot means that you have clicked on it at least one time. From the inbox screen, you can access in more detail any of the emails that you see. You can also delete emails from this screen by pressing the edit button in the top right corner and then selecting any email you no longer want in your inbox. This is also the screen where you can compose a message, which we'll take a look at in a couple of slides. If you click on the button in the top left corner of the screen on the previous slide, it will take you to a new screen called Mailboxes. This shows you every location that emails can be stored in for your email address. The main one is Inbox, which we were looking at a second ago, but other examples of this are your Drafts folder, which will store any email that you started typing but ended up not sending, your Sent folder, which will have all the emails that you sent, and your Junk folder, which has every email that the spam filter in the Mail app has automatically deemed as junk or spam. These can sometimes be helpful, especially in circumstances where you didn't receive a message and you want to check to see if it might have accidentally been flagged as a spam message. For the most part, however, if you ever get to the screen, you're going to want to click back on the Inbox button. There is one other different form of your inbox that can be found on this screen called VIP. Similar to the Favorites portion of the phone app that we looked at earlier, you can designate some senders as very important people, and they will go into a special mailbox called VIP, where you will only see messages that you have either sent to them or that they have sent to you. This can be very helpful if there are some people that you value more than the other people that send you messages, and is most helpful when you're getting many hundreds of emails per week. This is also the screen where you can create your own folders. For instance, if you're about to go on a trip to Italy, you could create a folder called Italy, which would allow you to put all of your flight confirmations, booking reservations, tours, and other items for travel into one location where you can easily access them in the future. You can also delete any of these folders by pressing the edit button in the very top right corner and pressing the minus button that pops up next to each of the items. The final portion of the Mail app that we will look at today is the composing or sending feature. There are two different ways to initiate this feature. One of them is replying to a message that has already been sent to you. You can do this by clicking on any of the emails that we saw on the inbox screen and pressing on the arrow button that is found at the bottom of the screen. Doing this will bring up this same visual effect that we're seeing on the slide right now. The other way to initiate this feature is by clicking on the pen and paper button, also known as the compose button, from the inbox screen. You would typically do it this way if you're initiating an email to someone that you didn't already have an active conversation with. Pressing either of those buttons will bring up the screen that we see right now. At the very top, you'll see the To field. which is where you will initially be adding content. Clicking next to the word to will bring up the keyboard. This is where you can type in either someone's name if you have their contacts saved, or their full email address, pressing the Done button as soon as it's typed into your satisfaction. Underneath that, you have the option of creating carbon copies or blind carbon copies of the email, which will bring up a similar situation to the To field, where you can add in as many senders as you want to each of the carbon copy and blind carbon copy fields. After that, you'll see the subject line, which you can click next to and add a subject to your email, which should be concise but informative to what the email will be about. The final portion will be adding the body of the email, which you can do by clicking in the space underneath subject but above where it says sent from my iPhone. As soon as you click there, the keyboard will come up and you can add in the body of your email to your satisfaction. When you're ready to send the email, you can click on the send button in the very top right corner, which right now on the screen is grayed out, but as soon as you've filled out each of the fields will turn the color blue. If you don't want to send the email, you can press the cancel button in the top corner, which will give you two options: delete draft or save draft. If you want to come back to it in the future, you can press save. Otherwise, if you want to completely trash the message, you can press delete or discard. This screen will also give you the dictation feature that we talked about in the Messages app, which can be activated by clicking the microphone in the bottom right corner, as well as the ability to switch between languages by pressing on the globe button in the bottom left corner. With that, we will conclude the first part of the iOS Basics course. This presentation was proudly presented by ItKid, your local residential tech help service. With any questions or comments related to the video, or if you would like personal tech help delivered to your door, please feel free to reach out at the contact information provided in the bottom right corner of this screen. Thank you for listening, and we hope to see you back with the next installment of the iOS Basics course.